Welcome back to Battleground, Florida. Now, we will continue our Amendment 3 discussion with Steve Vancourt, who is the spokesperson for cannabis company Trulieve. We also invited the group No 13, but they were unable to be here because of an event in Orlando. So we will begin with comments from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd during an interview with Stacey De Silva. Now, the sheriff is against Amendment 3.
Voting against Amendment 3, and I'm educating the community. I work for them. How they vote is their business. But here's what I know. It's a trick. You've watched the video clips, you've seen the advertisements. They talk about how regulated marijuana is better. Listen, when has government ever been able to regulate anything, test anything, tax anything, and sell it to you cheaper than private enterprise? Especially private enterprise that's not going to pay taxes, is not going to check on regulation or comply with anything at all. It's going to be an opportunity for the black market drug dealers to get rich and sell a lot of dope. The amendment, by the way, even if you're for it, restricts you specifically against growing marijuana at home. So you buy marijuana legally, but you grow a plant at home, it's illegal. These folks are going to make billions of dollars, and they rigged the amendment. In addition to that, they tell you more money for police, more money for education. There's not one word about funding education or police in that amendment. And then they say, oh, this is going to take work off the police so they can deal with the real criminals. Wrong again. It's not going to lessen our burden. In fact, when you consider the nuances, there's going to be more ways to violate marijuana laws than there are now, because there's going to be loopholes to this marijuana law. For example, you go out and you buy marijuana legally, but you bring it home and then sell it to your friend. That's against the law. So don't be fooled. This is an amendment written by a few corporations to make billions of dollars, specifically telling you you can't grow your own marijuana at home. It's a trick. I've been around law enforcement and the downside of illegal use of drug my entire life. California has a higher crime rate. Colorado has a higher crime rate. New York has a higher crime rate. They all have legalized marijuana. At a time when drug addiction's at an all-time high, suicides are at an all-time high, mental illness is at an all-time high, is now the time to vote for another mind-altering drug. That's your decision.
And Steve, I know you have a lot to say
to unpack there.
about the sheriff, but I want to first start with a defamation lawsuit that was filed by the company you're representing. They're suing Republican lawmakers. Why?
Well, you know, it's important for any company to protect their good name. And these are a group of Tallahassee politicians that represent almost nobody, who are lying about the amendment. Now, you know, I have nothing but a lot of respect for Sheriff Judd. But he made some clear errors in what he said, and I'd like to address those. For example, I agree with what he said about what's happening on the streets, right? That the drug dealers on the streets are not going to obey the law, and he's exactly right about that. We need to get it off the streets and into a safe, regulated market. Where he is wrong is that Colorado, teen usage, and this is not me saying it, this is the Journal of the American Medical Association saying teen usage goes down in states that have gone to a model similar to Amendment 3. But back to your question. You know, this election, this campaign is a yes on 3, is a bipartisan effort. We have the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, strongly supporting it. We have the former chairman of the Republican Party, Joe Gruters, strongly and advocating for this thing as well. You had him on the show earlier. You had a clip of him on the show earlier. And poll after poll shows a majority of Republicans also support this. Why? That's the Republicans that believe in less government, more freedom, right? And lower taxes. What does this mean? You said earlier 200 million. The actual study shows $400 million a year to go to anything the legislature wants. I also want to point out one other mistake he made, Ty, because it's really important. He says this bans home grow. It does not ban home grow. In fact, it gives the legislature the authority. It clearly says in the amendment, allows for entities other than the MMTC, so it expands the market, increases competition, takes it off the street, but also allows for entities to do cultivation, which is also home grow.
So people will be allowed to grow at home.
Assuming that, so you can only do so, very good question, Ty, because you can only do so much in a constitutional amendment that's done by citizens. You have to drive it through a very narrow lane called the single subject requirement, and the court has said repeatedly, one and only one subject, and so you say we're going to legalize marijuana in limited quantities for adults only, but it also allows the legislature to do certain things. Every constitutional amendment says, here's the basic framework. Now, what can the legislature do? And in this regard, it clearly states the legislature has the authority to allow licenses or entities, however they see fit, to do home cultivation.
And you heard from the governor, also the sheriff. They're accusing the big company like Trulieve of crafting this amendment and saying it's only in it for them. But is there really anything in it for you guys? What's in it for the company
what's
Trulieve?
funny about that line that they keep saying, it's like they haven't read the amendment. The amendment clearly says, allows for entities that are not medical marijuana treatment centers to have licenses as well. So this expands an already robust market. There's 25 MMTCs already operating in the state of Florida, and the governor already has the authority. He announced in April of 2023 they were going to issue another 22 licenses. Right now, there are more medical marijuana treatment center licenses on the books than there are grocery store chains in the state of Florida. So this gives the legislature broad authority to do things like limit public smoking, which we think is a good idea, limit driving, which we think is a very good idea. You shouldn't be driving while intoxicated on anything. And it expands the competition in the market and gives the legislature the clear authority to expand licenses and allow for home cultivation.
And of course, with this amendment, there's a lot of talk about crime. We heard from the sheriff. We also heard the governor talk about that. Democrats say the biggest priority is freeing those who have been convicted of simple marijuana possession. And Republican State Senator Joe Gruters, who you just mentioned, also agrees with that statement. Your reaction when it comes to that?
Absolutely. One step at a time. Like I said, you can only do one thing at a time. Once this happens, this will open the door for expungement, for past people who are sitting in prison, sitting in jail. And we know there's thousands of people sitting in jail today for simple possession. You know, it's funny because the No on 3 campaign keeps talking about California and New York, two states of the 24 that have made massive mistakes in implementation. We can do better than California, we could do better than New York, but what he didn't tell you was that teen usage goes down in states that overall put in place recreational marijuana. Why is that? You take a bite out of the gangs, you take a bite out of the illicit market. 95% of the marijuana sold in Colorado right now is sold on the legal market. Before, it was 100% illegal, so you're taking it off the streets where we're selling it laced. The Attorney General of Florida, who's opposed to this, issued a statement on August 21st of this year that more and more they're finding fentanyl-laced marijuana. Fentanyl, as you know, will kill you if you overdose on it. More and more we're finding street marijuana containing more and more illegal drugs, illegal additives, dangerous chemicals. One testimony in the Florida House of Representatives by Dr. Ralph Masulo said 90% of street weed contains dangerous chemical additives. Let's get it off the street, put it into a safe, regulated market, make it harder for teens to access it. You know what else goes down when he talks about crime? Domestic violence also goes down in states. Again, that's not me saying it. These are peer-reviewed studies coming out of SAMHSA, coming out of the CDC, coming out of places like the Journal of the American Medical Association, that when you take it off the streets, put it into a safe, regulated market, crime goes down, gang violence goes down, teen usage goes down, domestic violence goes down.
Steve Vancour, I wanted to talk about state revenues and how that should be spent, but we don't have the time. But I thank you so much for being with us. And coming up, my final thoughts in Ty's Take.